guys, welcome back to my channel Legal Banter. Today's video is a little special for me. This video is about exploring facets of constitutional law through their depiction in Indian movies. Now before I start talking about the movies that I love and I could relate to as a student of constitutional law, let me tell you a little bit of story. Now constitutional law as a subject has always fascinated me. Even though as a lecturer, I specialize in corporate and commercial laws, I've always wanted to incorporate this in my teaching, but obviously we couldn't do that in mergers and acquisitions. It was only when I started teaching another subject which had a very close nexus with understanding the Indian legal system was I able to successfully incorporate cases of constitutional law, and that also helped my understanding in the subject become much better. And that's what I'm trying to impart to you guys through this video. Now I realize that constitutional law is a law which is the foundation for all other laws that a law student studies in their student life. Not only that, once you graduate and you become a professional in the field of law, somewhere or the other you will keep confronting with constitutional law or the principles that are based. In fact, just to give you an idea as to how important constitutional law is, try understanding that right after the parliament passes any law, there is inevitably going to be a scenario where somebody will file a case before the Supreme Court challenging the constitutional validity of that petition or that legislation. The reason is because through the constitution, through part 3 of our constitution, there are certain fundamental rights that are given to Indian citizens or even persons like Article 21, and there could be a person who believes that when a certain legislation is passed, one of those rights or many of those rights are being violated because of the passing of that legislation. For example, last year when the Supreme Court decided to hold Sabrimala, the tradition that is followed in the Sabrimala temple, where women of menstruating age are not allowed in the temple, it decided to overrule that, basing itself on that it does not lead to a violation of Article 25, which is the right to practice one's religion. This was the chief contention given by the temple authorities, which the Supreme Court had struck down. So that is why it becomes very important, not only when you're studying constitutional law, which usually occurs when you're in your second year, but it's equally important to have a clear understanding of constitutional law, because it will pave way for a clearer understanding of other related laws that you're going to study in the future. So in today's video, I shall be exploring various facets of constitutional law through 11 of my chosen movies. Please consider this video as a preview to my forthcoming detailed series on constitutional law, where my focus would be picking up different aspects or provisions of the constitutional law, and we will be elaborating upon them based on the implications, how they're shown in the movies. So here's the list. The first movie on my list is a movie called Andha Kanoon. This movie was released in 1983 and it stars our mega stars Amitabh Bachchan, Rajinikanth, Hema Malini in pivotal roles. Now this movie is based on the central theme of double jeopardy and how a wrongful conviction is an apathy of our criminal justice system. It delves deep into what an innocent man goes through when he is wrongfully punished for an act that he did not commit, and eventually he tries to take an advantage of the very same thing by doing the act which he had already been punished for, and then when he is brought before the court, he questions this problem, the lacuna that our Indian criminal justice suffers from, that if somebody is punished wrongfully, if an innocent man ends up being punished by the court because there were circumstances that were against him, or he was being pitted against by the villain in the movie, it goes on to show that how this affects not only the person and the life that he wastes while he languishes in the jail, but also how it affects his social reputation, how his family is destroyed as shown in the movie, all for nothing. He goes and he hasn't even committed the offense for which he undergoes so much of torture and suffering. As a law student or somebody who is trying to understand constitutional law, this movie focuses on two basic legal principles. The first principle is the principle of double jeopardy. Now, under Article 20, Clause 2 of our Indian Constitution, this is provided as a fundamental right to a person. It means that anybody who has been convicted of an offense already cannot be reconvicted or punished again for the same offense twice. This is based on the rationale which is derived from a legal maxim called as autre foi convict, which means as I just mentioned, that you cannot be punished twice for the same offense. However, the converse of this is not true. The converse of this maxim is autre foi acquit, which means that if you have been acquitted by the court in the past, you can be convicted again. The court may re-agitate a case based on a similar set of facts or the same cause of action and can hold you guilty. The prior acquittal will not in any manner deter the court from proceeding against you again. The same provision is also manifested in two more situations. One is section 300 clause 1 of CRPC, the Code of Criminal Procedure, and second, section 62 of IPC also talks about that a person should not be punished again, provided he does something which can be broken down into separate offences. If he has been punished for one of those, or if the court has to decide what will be the maximum punishment, the court can choose to punish that person out of all those consecutive offences to take up and finalize the maximum punishment that is available. He cannot be punished a sum total of all the offences that had led to the commission of one particular act. The second principle of law that a constitutional law student may find relevant is Article 21, which even though manifestly gives a person, not citizen, it gives every person a right to life and liberty, but a facet of that is also right to fair trial, right to access to justice, which this movie also touches upon. How? If something goes wrong in the trial, probably because you were a person of lower means, or the odds were pitted against you and you are wrongfully convicted, it is an apathy of our adversarial based criminal justice system that does not take into consideration and undoes or tries to undo the damage that wrongful convictions lead to. The next film is Rane Basanti. This movie was released in 2006 and it's one of very popular movies between the Indian youth. Now this movie is a socio-political drama and stars Amir Khan, Madhavan, Soha Ali Khan and Wahida Rahman in central characters. This movie is basically how a group of 5 friends take it upon themselves to fight the administration, to fight the system, when one of their friends, who is a Air Force officer, he dies in a MiG crash. He was trying to avoid the crash, and in that process, he does not jump from the plane and ends up losing his life. But the defense minister, instead of applauding his efforts and how he ensured that the plane did not crash in a populated town, instead of doing that, the defense minister ends up pinning the entire blame on the incompetence of the deceased officer. As a result of this, the friends are enraged, and obviously they try to do the first thing that any sensible Indian decides to do. They decide to carry on a peaceful protest, which does not remain peaceful anymore because the police and the other executive forces come down heavily on them. The friends realize that doing it in a peaceful manner will not bring their voice or will not help in making their voice reach to the right people, and hence they decide to take the matters in their own hands, which they do by killing the defense minister while he is out on his morning walk. This movie, as a student of constitutional law, raises two very, very important questions, and one not so much a legal question, but it's more of a political question. Let me talk about the legal ones first. The first issue that the movie talks about or focuses on is your right to protest or the right to go on a strike. Now, when it comes to strike as a workman right, or when it is available under the Industrial Disputes Act, there are ample Supreme Court decisions that have recognized that right, that workers or trade unions have that right. However, when it comes to a common man and their right to protest, there's always an egoistic clash between the government or the forces and the common man. We are witnessing a similar clash that's happening in the ongoing protest of the farmers from Haryana and Punjab when they're protesting against the 3 farmers bill that have been presented and passed by the central government. In that also, when the protest had started, we did see the forces and the police clashing with the farmers when they were trying to deter them down or to break them down to make them back off from protesting, but the farmers did not lose their ground and they're still continuing to do so. More support to them. The second point that this movie also touches upon is something which is very innate to us as human beings, but it is also manifested in our Indian constitution. It is nothing but our freedom of speech and expression. This movie explores this theme in 2 ways. One, is when you go for that right of protest, it is an expression of your free will. Secondly, when they decide to capture a radio office, when they want to broadcast their message and they want to agitate the youth to make them understand that what has actually happened, their actions are also met with immense state resistance, which ends up in killing all the 5 friends that are there. So this movie does raise a lot of political questions about what happens or what are the repercussions when you call out the government. We saw that happening in 2011-2012 when Anna Hazare spearheaded this entire movement against anti-corruption laws, which was later on joined by Arvind Kejriwal. That time also, this became a very, very big political issue, that can you call out to the government, can you question the government? We do have the Right to Information Act, wherein we can seek information from the government, but we all know that a lot of time the government ends up making a mockery of that by resorting to Section 8 of the Right to Information Act, whereby they're only going to disclaim that this information that we are seeking is an exempted information. So this is also that the movie tries to touch upon. And finally, as I said, it also raises this political question in a common man's conscience, that can you bring about a change? Can your actions, if they are done with the right intent and they follow the right direction, can they actually lead to the right decision? We saw that happening because right around the time when this movie was released in 2006, if I'm not wrong, about in 2008 was the time when the Jessica Lal decision came from the trial court, and the trial court had acquitted Manu Sharma and his associates. It was a result of this agitation, this newfound agitation that the youth had found. I remember this because I was back in college and I had also participated in one such protest, where the protest ranged around asking the Supreme Court to redirect the case for being tried again. This public agitation was successful and the Jessica Lal case was directed to be tried again, leading to the conviction of the accused that were involved. So as a student of law as well as a student of sociology, you can relate that how can you bring about a change? A social change is possible if you do it with the right intention and you follow the right means. The next movie is Guzarish. This movie was released in 2010 and stars Hrithik Roshan and Aishwarya Rai in central characters. This movie is a tale of a paraplegic person who is seeking euthanasia or right to mercy kill himself from the court. This movie is his journey and the reason why he believes that his life is not one of dignity and hence he wants to end his life. I have discussed this movie in my previous series on criminal law as well. So if you want to understand the criminal law aspect, you can go back and check that video. I will leave the link in the description box. However, the reason I'm mentioning this movie in today's list is because it also has a very important connotation to constitutional law, which is Article 21, or what we also know as right to life and liberty. Now, life and liberty are two such explored concepts by the Supreme Court, and they have been rendered various exaggerated connotations and interpretations by the court as and when it has felt the need to do so. In this movie, it tries to explore that can one say that right to life means a mere life or a semblance of life, or it actually means a right to a dignified life. And when you believe that the dignity is no more there, when you are living your life in a vegetative state, dependent solely on other person for your basic needs, can that be said to be a life of quality? And can you be forced by law to prolong such a life? Because unfortunately, Section 309 of IPC punishes any attempt on suicide. Thankfully, the Mental Healthcare Act of 2017 has taken away the criminalizing effect of Section 309, effectively rendering it ineffective. But this movie does, however, touch upon Article 21 and its interpretation in terms of quality of life. So that's all for today, guys. I will be covering the remaining movies in the next part of my video. If you like the content, please like, share, comment and subscribe. And don't forget to hit the notification bell this time, as I will be posting regular videos every weekend from now on. Thanks for watching.